Hey everyone, welcome back again. Today we're going to be talking about what was probably for many people one of the scariest moments of the entire Cold War, known as the Cuban Missile Crisis. So, hopefully, if you're following along in class, you learned about the space race earlier in the week, where we had got the technology to send satellites into outer space, and then that means that they were on rockets, or which could be like missiles. And then we were able to send people into outer space and land on the moon, and then eventually come to work together. Well, before we get to the point where we're working together, we have some scary moments where the United States and the Soviet Union just really, really don't get along. And one of those is the Cuban Missile Crisis. And this little picture from that time period, this is 1962, as you'll see, is our president, John Kennedy, JFK, and he's doing this arm wrestling against the Soviet Union's leader. His name was Nikita Khrushchev. Um, and it just shows them having, if you notice, he's got a little button here where if he hits it, he's going to explode him. Here's the problem with exploding one is if you explode that bomb, you're going to die as well. And hopefully you read a little bit about that yesterday in the arms race, where we were just building up all these massive stockpiles of weapons. But the problem is, if we have so many weapons and they have so many weapons, if we launch our weapons at them, they're going to just launch theirs at us, and we're both going to just be destroyed. So, is that really worth taking out your enemy if you know you're going to die as well? And that's how we're going to avoid actually a lot of what would have probably been a lot worse. In the best case example of this, anyway, is the Cuban Missile Crisis. So, in order to understand why this is such a big deal, you got to look at what the world kind of looked like during the Cold War. You have the United States here, the Soviet Union here, and you see all the blue on your map is kind of the friends of the United States, our allies, and all of the red on the map is the Soviet Union and all of their friends. And anything that's gray really didn't have a side. Um, so the, we have all this technology to launch these missiles that could have nuclear warheads on them and destroy a lot of each other. But launching a missile from the Soviet Union to the United States, or the USA to Soviet Union, it would take a while. And we had all these we had radar set up to detect it and all of that. And we were still really far apart from each other. Well, that's going to change because, as you'll see today, Cuba is an island right here, if you're looking at the map, right just south of, this is Florida, this is South Carolina right here in the United States, like right south of the United States. I believe at the shortest point, it's only like 90 miles away from the tip of Florida. And the Soviet Union's going to put missiles in Cuba and aim them directly at the United States. So let's see how that looks. So the United States has spy planes, and so did the Soviet Union. They would fly super high in the sky, and with these, at the time, super high tech cameras, take pictures of the ground. They look like this. And we were flying planes over Cuba, and we got these pictures, and they got sent back, and some military guys were looking at them. And they go, "Huh, that's weird. That kind of looks like a missile silo." But Cuba doesn't have the technology to have missiles. So they're looking at the pictures and then, like, wait a second. Oh my goodness, this looks like nuclear weapons. And they realize that that not only are there now missiles in Cuba, so they're close enough to strike the United States, but the Soviet Union had sent them there. And that means the Soviet Union has got missiles right off of the coast of the United States, off the coast of Florida. Here's a better map for you to see how close. So this is Cuba right here. And it's only about 200 miles from Cuba to the city of Miami, which is a huge city. 750 miles to Atlanta, which is a huge city, and all these other places in the United States are now within striking distance. And this was probably the single scariest moment of the Cold War for a lot of Americans, especially people who lived in the South. because they realized just how close the Soviet Union was to being able to launch missiles if we made them mad or whatever. And that's a scary feeling to know that your enemy could launch missiles at you at any time. Um, so the United States finds out, and our leader, JFK, President John Fitzgerald Kennedy, contacts the Soviet Union's leader and is saying, "You've got to get these missiles out of here." The Soviet Union says, "Why?" Um, so after about 2 weeks of tense negotiations, um, President Kennedy convinces the Soviet Union's leader, again that guy here, Khrushchev, to remove the missiles. And it was seen as like this huge win for JFK. He was seen like this hero that managed to convince them to get rid of him. Secretly, though, we had agreed to remove our missiles from the country of Turkey. I know it's Turkey like an animal. Yes, that's the name of it. But so if you look at this map again, we got really mad that the Soviet Union put missiles right here in Cuba. If the Soviet Union is like, why are you so mad? You have missiles in Turkey. And look at my mouse here. See this little blue country here? That's Turkey. So we had missiles like right at the doorstep of the Soviet Union aimed at them. And we thought that was fine. But once they did it to us, we were like, oh, no, 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 no. So in the end, though, because rather than go to war with each other, we both agreed to remove our missiles. This was considered one of the greatest moments of JFK's presidency. And many of you probably know JFK actually was shot about a year later by an assassin in the United States. So this was considered the best moment of his presidency. That's why a lot of people still look back upon him very fondly as a good president. So that is our short lesson on the Cuban Missile Crisis. You're going to have a little reading on that and a little assignments.